Emmeline Pankhurst, the 15th of July 1858 to 14 June 1928, used to be a Maine British suffragette, who performed a militant position in supporting to attain female the proper to vote. Human lifestyles for us is sacred, however we say if any lifestyles is to be sacrificed it shall be ours. We won't do it ourselves, however we will put the enemy in the function the place they will have. To pick between giving us freedom or giving us death. Emmeline Pankhurst, From Freedom or Death, 1913. Short bio. Emmeline Pankhurst. Emily Pankhurst. Emmeline Pankhurst was once born in Moss Side, Manchester in 1858. Her household had a culture of radical politics, and she stepped into the identical mold, turning into a passionate campaigner for women's proper to vote. In 1878, she married Richard Pankhurst, a Maine barrister who was once 24 years older than her. Richard Pankhurst was once additionally a supporter of the women's suffrage movement. In 1894, she was once elected a bad regulation guardian, and she spent time journeying workhouses in Manchester, turning into conscious of the surprising tears of poverty many faced. I had been a suffragist earlier than I grew to become a poor law guardian, however now I started to assume about the vote. In women's arms now, not solely as a proper however as a determined necessity. With her husband they had 5 children, however his loss of life in 1898 used to be a superb shock to Emmeline. After Richard's death, Emmeline threw herself into the women's suffrage motion, forming the Women's Franchise League in 1898. In 1903 she shaped the extra-militant Women's Social and Political Union, WSPU. It used to be through the political motion of the WSPU that the time period women's suffragette motion was once created. She led a passionate crew of female who had been inclined to take phase in drastic motion such as tying themselves to railings, smashing home windows and launching demonstrations. Pankhurst defended the militant systems on the grounds that the circumstance of our intercourse is so deplorable that it is our obligation to spoil the regulation in order to name interest to the motives why we do. Her strategies contrasted with those of the NUWSS and Millicent Fawcett. The authorities and institution have been started up at the approaches of the women, and many have been arrested. When they went on starvation strike, they have been force-fed or launched solely to be rearrested, something regarded as cat and mouse. In 1912, Emily Pankhurst used to be convicted of breaking home windows and dispatched to Holloway Prison. In prison, she went on starvation strike in protest about the appalling stipulations that prisoners had been saved in. She described her time in jail as, like a human being in the system of being grew to become into a wild beast. In 1913, Emmeline's daughter, Christabel, took management of the WPSU, and their techniques grew to become an increasing number of militant. However, this polarized opinion inside the WPSU and many individuals left, arguing the violence used to be counterproductive and destructive to the cause. 2 of Emmeline's different daughters, Adela and Sylvia, left the motion, developing a rift in the family, which in no way healed. Due to the extended militancy of the British suffrage movement, public opinion used to be more and more polarized. Militant suffragettes have been frequently described as fanatics. In 1913, Emily Davison used to be killed after throwing herself beneath the King's horse. However, at the outbreak of hostilities in 1914, Emmeline Pankhurst used her campaigning strategies to assist the battle effort, and introduced a transient truce in the women's suffrage campaign. She viewed the risk of German aggression to be the increased threat. As she stated at the time, "What is the use of struggle for a vote if we have no longer bought a U.S. to vote in? The Authorities and the suffragettes declared a truce and political prisoners have been released. Emmeline Pankhurst addressing a crowd during the conflict effort. Ladies had been drafted into factories and took on many jobs which have been beforehand the retain of men, such as bus drivers and postmen. The radical social exchange of the First World War helped to slash the opposition to girls getting the vote, and in 1918, ladies over the age of 30 have been given the vote. In 1926, Pankhurst amazed many by way of becoming a member of the Conservative Party, and 2 years later going for walks for Parliament as a Conservative candidate. This was once in stark distinction to her before political experiences and sympathy with the poor. But after the Russian Revolution, she used to be more and more worried via communism and grew to be greater conservative in her political views. In 1928, girls have been granted equal vote casting rights with guys, at 21. However, in 1928, Emmeline fell sick and died on the 14th of June 1928. Legacy of Emmeline Pankhurst. There is a dispute over the extent to which the militant campaigns, led and stimulated via Emmeline Pankhurst, helped or hindered the women's suffrage movement. Some argue violence made the institution greater reluctant to agree to their demands. Others say it helped increase the profile of the motion and was once an aspect in supporting ladies obtain the vote in 1918. Whatever the deserves of her action, she epitomized the passionate faith that girls deserved equal rights and helped to provide this marketing campaign a greater profile. She lived via an age of unexpectedly altering opinions about the position of ladies in society, and she finally noticed girls given the vote